listening to the Tonebase Classical Guitar Podcast. We've got Ben Verdery joining me on the show today. When I was back in New York in March doing the series of interviews with the East Coast-based artists, Ben was the first person I met with, and we had just such a wonderful conversation, which ended up in more than 2 hours worth of recordings. And I was starting to piece together the episode and edit things out, and I was just really agonizing which parts to keep from the interview for this episode. I decided it's all wonderful material. So I've decided to release this over 2 episodes, or 2 parts. First part being today, of course, and then next week I'll release part 2. And I'm sure many of you already know the wonderful Benjamin Verdery, fantastic player, professor of guitar at Yale School of Music, and he's also quite well known for some really unique non-traditional collaborations, which is what this section of his episodes focuses on. Next week, you'll hear him talk about his teaching philosophy, his work with the 92nd Street classical guitar series, along with a book that was recently written for him. So today, I've got a really special sneak peek. As I mentioned, Ben has collaborated with some really interesting artists, one of them being Mark Martin, who was a 2016 American Beatboxing champion. They wrote this piece together titled From Aristotle. It's in 4 movements, and Mark, being an amazing beatboxer, employs some really awesome sounds that we just never hear with the classical guitar, along with some very interesting vocalizations and singing. And Ben wanted me to announce that he'll be releasing a neatly produced video of this piece on June 14th on his YouTube page. I'm really excited to see it myself, and I'm just as excited to have this preview for you. This is the second half of the piece, so I hope you enjoy From Aristotle.
Not marking time. Not marking time. Significant. A composite significant sound. Marking time is in the noun. No part is in itself significant. For man or white does not express the idea or has walked, does connote time, present or past. A verb is a composite significant sound. Marking time. As in the noun, no part is in itself significant. For man or white does not express the idea of when, but he walks or has walked, does connote time, present or past.
From Aristotle?
From Aristotle.
From
yeah.
Aristotle. And I could genuinely say this is the very first time I heard the classical guitar with a beatboxer. And I was a little skeptical before I listened, hearing that combo, and I got to say I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What gave you the inspiration to work with that beatboxer and to make such an interesting collaboration that no one has ever done before, in a sense?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm thrilled that you like the piece. What happened is just, this is part of the beauty of our lives. Like, you don't know who you're going to run into where, and I think if you and what happened in that case was my daughter's childhood friend is a hip hop artist named Billy Dean Thomas. And Billy and I we decided to collaborate, and in a song that she wrote, and I was playing guitars and stuff, and the engineer and producer is this guy named David Vaslaki. And David said, "Oh, I got a guy that has to come in tomorrow and is a beatboxer. You can't believe this guy." So we said, "Sure, great." So Mark comes in, and the minute he opens his mouth, doing what he does so brilliantly, we were just putty. We were like, "Oh my God," dude. So after the session, we drove home. It was a long drive. The studio was upstate.
Okay.
And just got talking about his life and the fact that his girlfriend is, it turns out with that, not at the time, but his girlfriend is a beatbox champion, won the beatbox championship of the world.
Oh, wow.
I said on that ride home, like, I really want to write a piece for the two of us. And he said, sure. And that resulted in a meeting the next day. And in this, what happened was, really deciding, okay, if we're going to do this, what is the text going to be? And he says, well, I'm really, studied linguistics in college, and I really love Aristotle. And I said, oh my God, that sounds fantastic. So Mark came up with the text, and then we decided the best way to proceed was to just sit around and improvise.
Yeah.
So right here in this room, we just would improvise. Like, what sounds do you make, and how do you, and what sounds like? Because the classical guitar was new for him. So that gave me a little bit of his musical vocabulary. Because yes, he's a world champion beatboxer, but he's a vocal artist.
Yeah.
Really. So he sings and he does all these, and so the piece uses all of these various things that he does, not just the beatboxing. And that was important for me to hear. It was like, okay, what is this guy? It is the same for him, because I would do this. Well, that's great, or that ponticello will sound great with this sound in my mouth. And like some of the runs, he literally go. I have to play the runs, and you'll see him literally go through each note and what sound to use. It's fascinating.
Wow.
And yeah, and of course, I got to learn about this whole world, of beatboxing, which is like, a community for sure.
Yeah.
And ultimately they're imitators. That's it's sort of, and that's sort of the basis of the first movement is, things as they are, as you say, as they ought to be. We're kind of imitating even the guitar. Maybe every instrument ultimately was imitating a bird or something, and so that's what beatboxers are doing. They're recreating out of their mouth originally drum sounds, etc. So that became the opening movement, and then the movement called the noun of just saying, Aristotle saying, well, what is a noun? And then verb, and then finally the wineless cup. So that, those were the movements that we decided. And then I wrote a lot of that in the hotel room in New Haven after teaching. But it really is co-written. I mean, yes, I wrote the notes and the quote melodies to some, right? And the guitar part and everything. But without Mark, it would not be the piece, So we would get together and then go through the movement, because he reads music but very slowly, and so that's not his world. His world is more oral. So we would put together the piece. I'd have this run. He'd say, yeah, well maybe and then we would, sometimes move things around, and so I do think it very much is co-written, even though quote I wrote the harmonies and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Oh, what a.
So now we've performed it about 5 or 6 times, and are definitely thinking of doing some more collaborating, some more. We've got some ideas. Let's maybe put a program together, because he can also sing quite well. As you see, he really sings beautifully, and I've often had my friends tell me how much they love his singing voice, because it's not a trained voice, but it's really beautiful. So it's really been, that one piece has been such a journey, and opened up a lot of my musical skills. He's taught me a lot, just about rhythm and time, and it's sort of funny. I'll tell you a great story that I think is. So the piece opens up with us making sounds of nature, and he's doing like, wind sounds, and I'm rubbing the guitar. And so right in this room we're rehearsing. Maybe this is for the GFA, or I think we did the premiere. I can't remember where the premiere was. Oh, it was New York City. And so I started to get really uptight, and I started to say, like, I don't know, man, my students, rubbing the guitar. And even though I'm usually all about that, but I started to get really insecure. And I said, this is going to be like fruitcake, man. This is, me rubbing, you doing this sounds. I just don't know. And he said, it's fruitcakey if you think it's fruitcakey. But if you really believe in these sounds and become one with them, then it's not. And it was a great teaching.
Wow.
It was great to hear that. It's like, yeah, you're right, man.
Yeah.
He's 30 years. I mean, I could be his father, so it's like, But it was a great teaching. So I learned. I'm learning a lot and learning. He's a great. He did all the. We have a video of that coming out in 2 weeks.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. It's more staged video.
Yeah. What a fascinating collaboration altogether, and it's so great to hear how that all started. Just in the recording studio, because classical guitarists, a lot of the time, we get so caught up with everything, and everything has to be perfect, and reading sheet music, and we never have these open collaborations where right on the spot we just start jamming out and everything. And you hear all these stories, with David Bowie and Queen in the studio recording under pressure and everything. That's one of my favorite stories. But you never hear anything like that with classical musicians just happening to meet some outstanding musicians in the studio, then collaborating right on the spot. It's just so great to hear how that started just from that and has really emerged into such a fruitful collaboration.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear you say that. I couldn't agree more. I must say, I think for a collaboration to happen as great, the musician has to inspire you, but you have to like the person too. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the minute I met Mark, I just liked him.
Yeah.
This kid's a cool guy. He's a great guy and very open and very intelligent. And so I think that's any collaboration I've done, which have been a lot. There's been Bill Coulter and I made 2 records. I mentioned these new great, Bill Coulter's this fantastic steel string music, bit of a musicologist in Irish music and one of my favorite guitar players for sure. But Bill and I have made 2 records and that's a collaboration, and I've learned tons from him in that sense. And some of our, mostly doing arrangements, with Bill.
Yeah.
But I remember a couple of times, just arranging something somewhat on the spot together. Like we both go in our corners and I said, okay, well, like we did this tune by Eddie Vedder called Rise. It was in this movie. I think he did it just with mandolin. But Bill came to me and said like...
An Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And that was interesting because it was his choice. And then I went back and said, well, what if we do this here, do that there? But live, improvising, like with each other. And of course, and it's very exhilarating. And then you create this little thing, this little piece of music that has this meaning. And of course, with Andy Summers, that was really exciting in the way that you're saying. That was really like me coming in. So, Andy has quite a lot of guitars in his studio. I'm not going to say how many, but it's more than 10. And so, I would say like, well, I want to steal. Give me like a 12-string guitar. Because I do this thing with 12 strings a lot where I tune the strings differently. Yeah. Each one. And you make up these chords that are to die for. Mm. I'm not sure you'd want to do the, Bach cello suites for those tunings. But anyway, so I tuned it in this way, and then I got chopsticks, and I started, and there's Andy saying, "Oh, let's do it right now, come on," and we just recorded it, no rehearsal, nothing, and that was one of the tunes. It's 1.5. I think the piece is a minute and 36 seconds or something. It's called "Fingertips on the World," I think, on our record. And that's just me playing with the 12-string on my lap, with the chopsticks, playing certain rhythm, and then knowing that I was going to stay in, the 6/3, the bottom 3, the courses of 6/5/4, and then as the piece progressed, I move out into the other 3 strings, the other 3 courses. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really fun piece. And
for our listeners, just in case if they don't know, Andy Summers is the guitarist from the British rock band The Police.
Yes.
Now doing solo stuff.
Yes,
but
tons of great solo. Yes, I'm glad you clarified that. It was so funny when Andy and I first started hanging out, The Police had long been disbanded before the reunion. And we had to... because he would come over, he'd eat dinner here a lot, and became like really close friends, and we had to tell our children, like, you guys don't understand how big they were. We would have to explain to them, like they were huge. They were the number one band. They were everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing them. So it's it's an extraordinary. Nowadays, I mean, Beyonce maybe is the most visible person, but there aren't as many rock bands now that are that dominant.
Yeah.
Dominant is the word I wanted. So we had to tell them like this. So that record, there were 2 or 3 improvisations like that.
Yeah.
That was where we really didn't know where we were going. I mean, I have a chart to a degree, but I don't know what he's going to do, and you're playing off each other, and that is exhilarating. I mean, it's it's just exhilarating, very different than what we classical guitarists.
And there's something when you're just right in the moment saying, let's record and let's do this. Sometimes you just get some of the most amazing recordings.
Yes, I think, and letting go, like just saying, look, if it's not good, it's not good. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, that's okay. Especially now since you have to pay for the tape. Back in the day, it was right. We can't continue because there's no more tape.
Well, one of my teachers when I was doing the recording minor at USC, Andrew Garver, who I hope to have on the show sometime. He's a phenomenal mastering engineer. I mean, done a lot of great work with Michael Jackson, Doobie Brothers. This guy is a serious audiophile, but even he would say at the end of the day, you have to capture the performance.
Yeah.
Even if you have the best microphones, the best preamplifiers and everything, if you don't capture performance, it's all for nothing. And I remember he showed us this video of, wow, we're going off topic for sure today.
Yeah.
This is great.
I was just thinking 2 seconds ago. I was just thinking, so far there's been no talk about the classical guitar.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. We'll.
I had Matt Palmer on, and I was like, oh, so who were some of your inspirations when you're younger? And he was listening to all these heavy metal players who had no idea who they are. It's like, this is awesome, dude.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, it was Nirvana recording Nevermind, their first record.
Yeah.
And it was, I forgot the
name. Is that the one
with
the baby floating?
Yeah.
With the dollar bill and the baby. That guy, but there was some crazy article where that guy was interviewed recently. He says, I'm the dude. He's like, whatever now. He's like 30 it's like, that's me.
Yeah, I would not want that photo of myself swimming around naked.
I think it'd be great. I mean, he's like,
well, that's how everyone knows you. You're the naked baby.
Oh, well, they don't obviously, they don't recognize him.
But anyway, it was it's just driving me nuts why I'm forgetting the name of the song, but it was the acoustic song or one of the acoustic songs on the record.
Not Smells Like Teen.
No. It's a very soft song.
You'll get it. Let go. Yeah.
As soon as I stop recording this. But anyway, Butch Vigor, the recording engineer, was just in the control room, and Kurt was just strumming an acoustic guitar and started singing this haunting song, and Butch was like, oh my God, we got to record this right now. And he just grabbed a cheap microphone for his vocal and another for the guitar. And, that obviously they had this great live room to record in, but it was just right in the moment, not the best signal chain and everything. And it's kind of regarded as one of the most haunting, moving Nirvana songs now. There's something about when you feel the performance just going for it right in the moment.
Well, I think it's a great point to discuss for those who... I was just talking about this yesterday with a string quartet that I'm working with at Yale, because they were about to record that afternoon. This was yesterday morning. We were rehearsing a piece that I want to talk about. I was just saying, of all the records I've done, which, I don't know, whatever, 18 or 20,
Yeah.
And the importance of the engineer being supportive.
Yeah.
And the importance of the vibe, the vibe that the engineer puts out, and the vibe of the room. And I mean, all those things really do affect, obviously, the way you play is important and it being prepared, but you can't underestimate that. So I think you're right. As great a sound as it may be, if the performance isn't there for some reason emotionally, it's still going to lay flat.
Yeah.
As we've heard, so I think that's important for young people to really interview the engineer.
Yeah.
Not only to hear what he's done in the past and to get some idea of what his or her concept is of sound or of the guitar sound, but when you're really laying down, bearing your soul in a piece of music that you've prepared, whether it be your own piece or Bach or anything, right?
Yeah.
That's a very tender moment. This is it.
Yeah.
They say, well, you can do it again. We have this kind of feeling of, well, we can come back. No, life doesn't work quite that easily. You know, to arrange a recording session, even in your own home, there's a mental and emotional build up to that. You know what I mean? That to get to that place of, okay, now I'm ready, because I never feel ready, even when I'm really ready. You know, but I must say that the more prepared. I remember I did some recording with a guy named Solomon Silber, and who's a former student, my great cat and great musician, and I was gonna do, it was about my Chaconne video, the video of me playing the Chaconne, which out in the middle of nowhere, which is a whole story on Maui, and I already, this is my second recording of the Chaconne, so I had already. I went, but I decided that, well, if I make this video, I don't want to, because I sync, most of my videos are synced.
Yeah.
Because I want to do them in an extraordinary setting, and I want them to be these like little art pieces or something about nature. And that one is particularly like that was my climate change. I went to the most beautiful, very spiritually charged place on Maui.
Yeah. I'll put a link in the description for this for people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's on this drive, called the Hana Drive, and it's on the other side of the mountain, and you can go there. You can, and there's I wrote about it on my website. Everything that could go wrong that day went wrong. I'm telling you, it was just so when you see me out there in the wind, that's after my car got towed. It was Labor Day. I paid a ton of money for this guy to come out in the middle of nowhere because I went down this muddy drive. Oh, you can't even imagine it.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Everything went wrong. And I knew the guys that were filming at least, but we all had deadlines. I had a plane to catch. I'm on the other side, like 3 hours from the airport. It's in the middle of nowhere. My point is, back to the Chaconne. So I thought, well, I can't do... it doesn't feel right to sync to my old Chaconne recording because I'm not that. That was like I think as many as 8 years ago. I'm not that guy, so I'm going to redo it. Even though there are many gestures and many things that are similar in it.
Yeah.
So I went into the recording studio a little cocky. I know the Chaconne, man. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't practice, but man, I got in there and it wasn't happening. I was just, and I really wanted that thing down that day. You know, I really wanted to record that day. And Saul was saying, I mean, the vibe was great and all, but I wasn't really as prepared. And I said to myself, we even edited it, right? We edited it, quote, sounding, quote, perfect with edits, whatever. I just listened to it and said, no, this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
So I junked it. And then I came back 2 months later, really prepared.
Yeah.
Really prepared and had played it for friends. I wasn't playing any concert at that time, but I went out and played it for a bunch of friends before the recording, and what a difference. So I think that's one of the biggest things in recording is, because that's it. Like you might re-record something. I've recorded a piece twice, and I don't like either of the recordings still. So I may do it the third time. I'm not gonna tell you what it is. But you don't get that many cracks at it. So it is, and it's an interesting dialogue. Like, well, why are recordings even necessary? Why should anybody make a CD? What are they now? To young people, like, what is this? And I don't know if, I certainly feel still, because I'm old school, I grew up with records. I grew up smelling them and walking miles to buy a Beatle album, into my hometown. And devouring it, and it always blows my mind that, like, I'm holding this cell phone, and if you were to say, like, I can call up on my cell phone videos of Jimi Hendrix or anything, or the Beatles. I mean, if you had told me you were going to do, that's mind-bending.
Yeah.
That we have at our fingertips all of this stuff. But those days, you just looked at the album cover and you devoured every word, every picture. And even the smell, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're, so that's where I come from. And I think my generation and this idea of, records are snapshots of who I am musically, just the way my pieces are. So if I don't do them, then I don't have anything. So I think for younger people, if you don't do recordings, well, what are you going to have to show when you're 45 or 50 or 60? My case, 63.
Yeah.
So I still think they're important, and I still think, and you as an engineer / musician, are important, because I do think that there's this relationship of the engineer and the. I know a couple of guys that, like my great guitarist Mike Nicolela. Mike records himself and does I don't know how he does it. I mean, for me, he goes into church at midnight and he does everything.
Yeah.
Shoot me. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I don't have that gift. I mean, but for me, it's been this collaboration. I do want the producer. I don't want to be produced in the sense of driven crazy, but you know what I mean? Like where you get too much information, but you want the encouragement and the vibe, like I said earlier, to be there, Yeah. So, but just to say, like, so I think it's an interesting dialogue. What do we do with CDs? I don't want 1,000 CDs, and so we press less, but I still think we're going to have to document what you do. Maybe it can just come out in singles, like that's why I started doing videos, because I just sort of said, my first videos were this set called the Shangri-La series that my daughter did, of Faya's Homenaje, Albéniz Córdoba, which is one of my all of these, and Julio Florida of Barrios. I just kind of had them in my fingers, and I wasn't going to make a Spanish record. The old days, it's like everything had to be framed. Oh, this is my song. I'll wait and not record the Faya and the Albéniz until I have more Faya, more Albane, more Granados, and that would be my Spanish record. And then I'll wait and do an all Barrios. No, man, I'm done with it. I'm not going to do that, So I just wanted to record them now because I was playing them and I had something to say with them. So I said, well, we'll do videos. Yeah. So in that sense, I'm getting off. I'm moving to a different topic here, but in that sense, I like now this freedom of videos, and that we just put something out. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be. Although I am making albums, I'm in the middle of 3 different records that are framed. That like the next one that come out is all my music with the Aristotle on it, and a duo with Simon Powys and a bunch of solo things. So yes, that's whatever that is, my 3rd record of my own music, or 4th, I can't remember. But so yes, I still framed it, but I also love the fact that I can just put a video out like I did at the Villa Lobos or any of the ones. Yeah. Or the Chaconne is a new Chaconne. You should see some of the comments in the Chaconne, man. It's to die for. This guy's reverb is really incredible. Is that the mountains? Seriously, because there's all these mountains behind. It's like, well, how did he get it so the waves, you don't hear the waves? I love those guys. I love them.
Well, I've got a question, actually. How do you go about syncing
your that's a good
with
question.
The video? Because I'm sure you're the same, with each performance, it's slightly different in regards to how much rubato and everything you're using.
Thank you. That's a great question. Torture. Literal torture.
Yeah.
Because the Chaconne, my wife is not so pleased with me because we were supposed to have a vacation, and we were in another island, so I had to fly to Maui from Honolulu. From Honolulu, where we were staying on vacation. It's supposed to be, you're not supposed to be 2 hours at least a day over and over the recording, because I don't know where the pauses are. So I rehearse like a fanatic with the record over and over, and I play every video I do, I'm playing full on, as loud as I can play, because I'm playing it. But yes, I'm syncing it. But so I sometimes with retards, I literally can hear a squeak, or it won't necessarily be a musical thing, or I'll count to myself, okay, 1, 2, 3, enter.
And when you're doing the recording, are you playing, or the video? Yeah. Are you playing the recording as well? Or
dude, yeah, of course. Yeah. That's the challenge. Is my guys now. I got this 2 guys called Polyphonic. If you ever want to have anything filmed on Maui, Polyphonic Industries or Inc. I thought they're called. So we've done 4 videos now. The last one was hilarious because it was the Villa Lobos, and I said, yeah, man. Look, I wanted to be in this rainforest. And they said, well, dude, I don't think we can get you. We'll do what we can. We have this property so they found this great stream. Yeah. But I swear to God, there's a scene in it where I'm on this rock, and I'm trying to balance, because I have to play. I can't. It's important with the videos for me that the guitar audience does see. It's not like, like Guitar Salon where you can literally get all the fingerings, So there's distant shots, and yes, you're going to see the river, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Which is what I want, But nonetheless, you have to play. And so, but we would think, well, man, if we could get you in that rock in the middle of the stream, that would be killer. And there's all these shadows, because they're into it too from their standpoint artistically. The reflections of the water, like there's some really cool stuff. Well, you should see me. I'm on there. I'm trying to play, and at one point I think I'm going to fall, and then he's handing my guitar, which is like, I know the guitar maker, but it's $7,000-8,000 guitar, and I'm, oh, you can't believe it. It's just mad. So they have to crank. They bring this speaker like this,
and they just crank it.
And I tell them, dudes, you have no idea. You can't believe the Chaconne, because it was like the Chaconne, there was so much wind and stuff. It was like, oh my God, and the ocean's crashing. But we did it. And then you have to conceal it. You can't have the speaker fizz, right? Which is because you want it as close to you as possible.
Yeah, but without being in the shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I rehearse tirelessly, like over and over and over. The new one that's coming up from Aristotle, that was very challenging because it was with Mark. But you could also say, well, you can always cut to Mark, but not always. You can't. You can say you can cut and use B-roll, which is true, but you really want it artistically cool. I mean, it's a drag when you have the great shot and you're not synced. And there's only so much you can do. You can fudge the syncing a little bit, but only so much.
Yeah. Wow. It's a whole nother world. I usually just do the clap, but I'm not in.
And I do live videos, but I don't play very accurately a lot of the time, so that really bothers me. But I have things up on YouTube that are live on stage that I'm okay with.
But the scenery.
But I'm not like, I can name me like all these people that play. I just don't do. It's not,
The scenery you get from these shots in Hawaii, it's just stunning.
Well, that was the idea.
Yeah,
that was the idea. I'm
beautiful.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you. And there had been a joy to do except for the Chaconne. But it's such a great story. I write about it on my webpage. It's called The Making of the Chaconne. You can see it on my. You cannot imagine how many things went wrong. You just can't. It was just.
But you still got it.
We got it, man. Yeah, and that's the thing.
That would be a bummer if it was all that trouble for nothing.
Say it. Yeah, and it's so true. And at the end, I always look at it and go, like, I'm so happy I did that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Thank you, Ben, for being on the show. Please join me next week on June 2nd for part 2 of Benjamin Verdery. I'll leave things today with a beautiful rendition of the Prelude from Bach's Cello Suite No. 4. I'm David Steinhardt, and we'll see you next time for the Tonebase Classical Guitar Podcast.